welcome everyone to the CISO IT podcast from Autobox. My name's Jason Kikta. I'll be your host today, and I was really excited. I was going to record the episode right after RSA, and instead RSA got me pretty good. I was sick there for like a week and a half. Totally lost my voice. And it was nobody wanted to hear me in that state, and I don't think I could have made it through the full podcast. So coming to you late, but we have a lot of great things to talk about here, and I still want to talk about some of the observations I had at RSA this year because it was very interesting, and it was a change from what I've seen. A bit of a shift from the previous 2 years, so that's a bit exciting for me as a security professional, and hopefully for you as well. So without further ado, let's jump into it. I would say the trend that I saw at RSA the last 2 years, it was very heavy on detection, very light on fixing. And I don't know that as a general trend was by any means resolved this year. I think there's still the cybersecurity side, especially when you compare it to like IT, is much heavier on finding than on fixing. But one really interesting thing, and I've really been shocked that there hasn't been more of an emphasis on this from industry, is this year I saw a lot more focus on identity. And I think that's really encouraging and frankly, like long overdue, probably like 5 years overdue. Because when I look at people's cloud environments and what they are running there and what really matters for preventing or detecting or responding to an attack, it tends to be identity. Identity is one of the most cutting edge cloud games out there. And it's really, I would say, if you're on the malicious side of the house, it has largely replaced malware as the sort of centerpiece of your tooling focus, and even of your technique focus. It used to be that really good high-end threat actors had the very best malware and focus a lot on tooling, and not just, beacons and rats, but really good post-exploitation tooling. And we do see good post-exploitation tooling today as well. It's also in there with, it's also supplemented by a lot of the initial access and the lateral movement, the privilege escalation in a cloud context. It all revolves around identity. So, the things that used to, the initial entry exploit or the phishing campaign to a dropper or a beacon followed by a rat, like those are all really superseded or replaced by identity games in the modern cloud context. So that can be anything from taking over user identities and getting into your IDP or assuming some credentials there, to taking over service accounts, service principals, and using those to orchestrate services, using that to escalate privilege, and using some of those service fundamentals to then run your attack. And so it was really nice to see that. I think the other change that I've started to see is a lot more focus on, I'd say more sophisticated approaches to risk and understanding risk. Still a bit of a mixed bag. I think there are some people out there who are some vendors, and I think this is due in part to customer demand, that are looking for a slightly fancier or slightly more interesting take on doing a very old or I tried and true. I think that's a fair characterization. Tried and true method of scoring risk, of identifying risk, of giving you that sort of intelligence on what's in your network. And so there are a lot of companies who are still focused on just eking out that little 5%, 2%, 1% performance gain in that, or slightly, a slightly better optimization than what you had last year. And I would contrast that with, I think, the newer, younger vendors who are trying to take a radically different approach, a more, less of a cataloging of risk approach and more of a focusing on critical risks approach. And what I mean by that is there's essentially two methodologies at play here, right? One is you try to find all the things and then, yes, build some priority out of it, but you're really trying to look for, like, what is everything that could possibly get me. And I think the shift that I've seen is to a more threat informed approach of, hey, there are a lot of things that could get someone access to something. Many of those things do not, those are trees that fall in the woods and no one's around to hear them. So do I really care if it makes a sound? Or am I going to be really, really focused on the sort of core technologies and the key points in my infrastructure that could allow attacker to do real damage, real meaningful damage to the business, damage to my customers, damage to my reputation, and how do I focus on those things instead? And so that was another trend that I saw that was very interesting. But I'm curious. I'm curious to see this year if how that plays out with how that plays out at Black Hat, right? And so it was sort of last year. I would say Black Hat's vendor floor felt like a repeat of RSA's. I certainly was not the only one saying that. And I think to some extent, right, vendors, I work at a vendor, we all get show fatigue. There are only so many new things you can show at a given one, especially when you have several throughout the year. You cannot plan a very meaningful roadmap or a very meaningful roadmap around shows, right? You pick a few key ones. You pick things that are sort of natural evolution. You try to hit those dates, but not everything's going to come out for a show. But I will be interested to see if there is a more sophisticated view when we get out to Black Hat in August, and if it's going to try and head in a different direction, both as a show and with the vendors there, or if it's just going to RSA and Black Hat are just going to keep merging into like the unitary one, and they're just kind of quasi at opposite ends of the year, and so you get two bites of the apple. Because you don't see that at other shows, right? Like even DEF CON, which is right after Black Hat, and feels not like DEF CON used to be. It's a different kind of show. And then you go out to like, some of the AWS events or Gartner or pick your cybersecurity event. And some of those conferences, they're wildly different feels. But I think there's, there was a trend towards homogenation of these cybersecurity events. And I think that makes each of them individually less valuable. And so I'll be interested to see if that distinction starts to play out more, or if people try to distinguish what they show at different shows more than they have in the past. That would be really fascinating, right? Is it the same booth that they roll out and that's just the 2025 booth? Are they talking about the same things, prioritizing the same things, or are they speaking with a slightly different lexicon and a slightly different focus to what is, in fairness, a slightly different audience? It's not quite the same. I see a lot of the same people there. Obviously, I go to both, but it seems like they are geared towards a slightly different set of security professionals, and so I would like to see those differences honored. It would certainly be a lot more interesting, because if they're all the same, that doesn't feel like much fun. So, anyways, that was way off topic for this month, but I always like to, after the big events, talk about those, because I think the annual shows that happen several times a year, especially if I'm going to attend it, I think it's hopefully of interest to the audience to hear kind of what went on there and what was of interest and what wasn't. But yeah, it was definitely a slightly different vibe this year. I had low expectations going in, and I was pleasantly surprised. So here's to being pleasantly surprised again throughout the year, and maybe we're on a more positive trajectory as an industry and as a profession. So until next time, stay safe out there. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you in June.